Oh, you're muted.
Hello.
Oh, I'm starting to let all sorts of people in. Hi. Let's see. Hi, Laurie.
Man.
You guys, I'm on a computer without a video today.
Oh, man.
Oh, no.
But it's very pretty behind me.
Well,
Where are you?
I'm on Kauai.
oh,
Oh, I did get a vacation message from you. I was hoping it was something good.
It is.
but you're calling in anyway. Thank you.
Of course.
Wow. I want to see what you're looking at. Do you have the ocean view?
I do.
Nice.
I'm pretty lucky.
I was just hoping to see your doggy. I'm always happy to see your pup. And Isabelle, I see the parrot has joined us again in the back.
Yeah, she's actually being a good bird. That is
good.
Quiet. She's being quiet. Sometimes
keep
she's not just
promising.
talking.
I keep promising one of these days I'm going to bring a chicken to a meeting.
I had a chicken.
I love chickens. I have
That was
chickens.
my first bird.
They're so goofy and they hate my guts, which just cracks me up.
When are you gonna get a goat that can scream so we can have a live one?
You know what? One of my chickens screams. I don't know what her deal is, but when she sees me, she gives out this yell that sounds just like a person, and it's creepy. It's creepy.
Uh-huh.
But you know, that's the joy of the ownership of fowl.
Maybe it's a love scream.
It could be. I mean, normally when they see me, it's because I'm going to be giving them a handful of scratch or some mealworms. So maybe that's just her chicken way of saying, bring it. Where's the worms?
I want it. Have you tried soldier fly larva?
I've heard of soldier fly larva. I've seen video of soldier fly larva, just like going all over the place, and it's creepy and gross.
They do love it.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll take your word for it, but they gross me out. So I don't know how well that's going to go.
Thanks for turning on webcams if you can. Not everybody has to, but it does make it a little better to connect.
Oh my God, she's got her. I just realized the bird has her head stuck entirely through a boot I gave her.
Oh.
She has not just chewed her way through it and stuck her eye up there. I just saw the head just popped out.
The joys of bird ownership, and Kelly brought a little baby data expert.
She has a lot to contribute.
Oh,
sure.
Hi, girl. We've heard about you.
I believe her, no matter what she says.
You guys need to come up with some solutions. Come on.
Oh, look at that face. What a cutie.
I love, sometimes mine makes an appearance. It never goes well, but yours seems nice and mellow.
She is right now. Anytime I usually unmute, she usually loses her mind and wants to crawl onto the keyboard and wave hi. And now she's starting to kiss screens because now she's grown up. She's born at the beginning of COVID, so she knows FaceTime really well. So she FaceTimes with her grandparents a lot and she kisses the screen. So you might be so lucky.
Oh, there's Tom with his amazing Yurok hat. I assume that's a Yurok hat. We'll wait till he gets connected to audio and he can tell me if I'm wrong, but that looks like a knit version of a basket cap.
It is. It's the Yurok hat from downriver from one of my previous staff, the Williams family.
It's beautiful.
And it's very cold up here right now.
Oh, huh. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I don't like to be cold.
I'm wearing the hat not to make a statement. I'm wearing it because it's cold.
Well, it can be both. That's okay.
We're just happy you have electricity today, Tom.
Yes, that's good.
All right. Well, I see so many familiar faces. So just hi, everybody. We're probably going to get a few more people kind of trickling in here, but this whole thing is basically a ruse to get some of my favorite people together. So thank you so much for being with us. I'm going to actually start sharing my screen. Here comes Doug. We have folks from all over the country joining us today, and I'm just really excited for this conversation, and excited if those of you who don't know each other yet can get to know each other. This there's going to be a lot of expertise on the call today. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen and talk amongst yourselves for just a moment.
Well, I just want to say also thank you, everybody. Welcome. We're really thrilled to have you all joining us today. I mean, this is just a fabulous group of super smart and hardworking and wonderful people. Which is unusual for me. I usually don't like working in groups, but you know, there's some groups where everybody is key and really makes a difference. And this is one of those groups. So I'm just very, very excited that you all are here and bringing along your pets and your little ones, and you know, because that's why we do this, you know, for a better world for our kids and for our parrots and for our chickens and for our dogs and our cats. But I don't think cats really need us. So
Well,
Angie, go for it.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and kick this off. So this is our first meeting of what we're calling the National Tribal Resilience Data Workgroup. And we're just really happy you're here to join us. We actually invited I don't know, maybe 30 or so people. About 24 have actually signed up and registered to participate for this so far. And so this is a BIA funded activity. So Shasta and I are really fortunate to be funded by the BIA through the Tribal Resilience Program to facilitate these conversations. And that means we can continue to do this for a bit, as long as there's interest. And and actually thanks again to BIA for that photo that I'm showing, which is a globe shot from their interactive map of tribal communities throughout the US. So that's just really to get our heads around the scope of what we're dealing with here. We're talking about tribes across the country. I want to tell you a little bit about what we're here to do together today and what the agenda will look like. And then we're going to do some introductions, because I want us all to know each other, who's on the line, who has what expertise, what fun things we might be able to pull off and pull together. So the purpose of today's meeting, I gotta keep admitting people. Hang on one sec, admit all. The purpose of today's meeting is to connect national health and climate data experts and invite you to join us to exchange knowledge on priority tribal adaptation and resilience data needs, share tools, practices, ideas, and lessons learned from the field, because you've all been at this, and explore opportunities to develop or scale up solutions to address tribal resilience data needs. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And like I said, this is the first meeting. I would like to start us off with introductions, and we'll start with Shasta and I, because I want you to get a better frame for who we are, what we've been working on, and then we'll open it up to everybody to introduce yourself and a little bit about how your current work addresses tribal resilience data needs. Let's just get us all on the table here. And then later on, like right after that, we'll spend a little time on introductions, but after that, I want to give you an overview of what we have been working on with the Tribal Climate Health Project in general, how that has led us to diving so deeply on the data development front in terms of trying to address tribal data needs and make it more accessible. And then what results and learnings have come from that. We just want to share that with you, and that hopefully will jog some thoughts for you from your own vantage point, and we can have a discussion about ideas and opportunities, which doesn't have to be everything end all be all, but it can be a good start to what can be a longer conversation. And then I want to wrap up with a little information about what we're thinking about what participation in this group looks like in terms of meeting structure and time commitment, things like that, which we don't expect to be really high. And then I want to have a conversation around the goals of the group. Okay, so does that sound okay? And what I would like for this to be is interactive as well. So if you have a question, go ahead and say it out loud. Feel free to use the chat, but let's make this an out loud kind of group if we can. So it's real interactive. Okay, so Shasta, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Shasta Gaughan. I am the Environmental Director and the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Paula Band of Mission Indians. I am coming to you today from Payumkawitchum territory on the Paula Reservation, also known as San Diego, California, and been working with Angie and Prosper Sustainably for, what is it, like since 2015 now, I think, on this. So yeah, going on 6 years, if not more. And we've been at this point trying to work a little bit more on data needs. So that second bullet, how my current work supports resilience data needs. Well, or addresses it. What we're trying to do is just get more of the data that we need to really inform our climate vulnerability assessment and adaptation plan work, and also to make more of that available to other tribes to make their lives easier. And I find that the best way to do these introductions is to tag somebody to go next. Otherwise, everybody sits there quietly, not sure who's going to go. So, Angie, I'm tagging you, but then you have to tag somebody else.
Yeah, let me go, because I do want to give a little frame about just even what the Tribal Climate Health Project is too, before we kind of open it all up. So Angie Hacker, I'm with Prosper Sustainably. Super fortunate to be working with Shasta and Paula, who allowed their tribe to be this national leader in tribal climate change and health issues. And I've been working with communities and sustainability for 20 years. I've worked with both local and tribal, and Prosper Sustainably serves community scale sustainability across the country. But this particular project is a big passion of mine, and I'm so excited, to share with you what Shasta and I have been able to build. But what we have built just needs more minds, and the more the better. And we're continuing to sort of dive into how we can make things easier for tribes as they try to transition towards greater and greater levels of resilience. And I just want to show you this quick slide. So this is just showing you how the Paula Band of Mission Indians has led this whole effort through the Paula Environmental Department, which Shasta runs. They've hired on Prosper Sustainably, and we have helped administer the Tribal Climate Health Project, which has been going for over 5 years. We're federally funded. We have an advisory group, which many of you have actually served on, so thank you for that. And our original goal was to build capacity for tribes across the country to develop, to more easily and readily start adapting to the health and other impacts of climate change. And so we were fortunate to receive funding from the EPA, the BIA, and actually the National Indian Health Board through the CDC to do Paula's on the ground work, to do their own adaptation and learn from their own experience and translate what we were learning both externally and through them into the Tribal Climate Health Project to build capacity for tribes across the country. So we have a website with a resource clearinghouse. We've developed trainings, and we've trained over 1,000 tribal serving professionals to date. Trainings that range from all things vulnerability assessment, all things well-being. We have a webinar series right now on well-being, so how tribes can adapt to the psychosocial impacts of climate change. And along with that came a development of curriculum, so much research, so much fact-finding, that we decided that it was going to be literally impossible for us in a training to communicate all the things that a tribe would need to know in order to properly complete a vulnerability assessment adaptation plan, especially one that also incorporated this complex world of health, which almost no communities at the time were doing, still sort of rare to meaningfully incorporate health into a tribal climate health, an adaptation plan. So we dove into data development, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit later about what that looked like. And the BIA has funded a couple of phases of data development work. So that's my longer introduction, but I want to go back here and invite everyone else to introduce themselves. So Shasta, should I tag?
I think what I'm going to do, just to make sure nobody gets missed, is I'll call people out and I'll go down the list. And so we're just going to do this in alphabetical order by first name. So A people, that would be you, Althea, you're first.
Good morning, everybody. Had to check the time. Althea Walker here. I am Nez Perce Hopian Gila River, and I am the Tribal Resilience Liaison for the American Indian Higher Education Consortium at the Southwest Climate Adaptation Science Center. And I am calling in from Otham and Peeposh lands, otherwise known as Chandler, Arizona. And how my work addresses tribal resilience data needs. I do a lot of capacity building, a lot of relationship building, and just in general providing tribal climate adaptation support to tribes in California, Nevada, Utah, and Arizona, which includes resources like funding for tribally led, tribally focused research projects. But it's great to be here and be invited to participate, and always, just the continued opportunity to work with individuals like Shasta. And
Thanks,
oh,
thanks,
do
Althea.
you want me
I'm
to
gonna go.
choose, or
I'm gonna go in
okay.
order so that way I just go down the list and it doesn't get confusing. So I already have confused people, so apologies for that. April Taylor.
Hey everyone, I'm April Taylor. I'm a Chickasaw member and a Chickasaw employee, so Chickasaw Nation. But I'm officed at the South Central Climate Adaptation Science Center here in Norman, Oklahoma. I'm a tribal liaison for 68 tribes in Oklahoma, New Mexico, Texas, and Louisiana. And in that position, we do a lot of climate data and hazard data. And I do a lot of technical assistance and pulling that data and creating mini reports or writing chapters for different things. As far as health data, it's not an area that I have spent a lot of time on, but I'm definitely a regional from that region for South Central. But one thing that we have been doing is mosquito population monitoring. And we started with youth outreach, and we have some researchers here that we do a lot of citizen science, sort of community engagement type stuff. And so we go out to festivals and things, events, and talk to people about mosquito populations and that mosquitoes carry certain vectors and all that. So I guess in a way we're collecting data, we're generating new data. Monitoring.
Thank you, April.
That's me.
Thanks, April. Next is Benjamin Hatchet.
Hey everyone. Yeah, I really appreciate the invitation to join and work with you all. So I'm Ben Hatchet. I'm a regional climatologist and research professor at the Desert Research Institute and Western Regional Climate Center based in Reno, Nevada. And the majority of my work pertains to weather and climate extremes, both in the past, present, and future in the Western United States, particularly California and the Southwest and other mountain regions of the Western US, but also globally. And we do a lot of observational data housing and providing historical data, as well as providing climate projection information to various groups, and trying to take that data and put it in a way that is more usable to address specific needs. So taking things from temperature and precipitation and doing some basic analyses to make them a little bit more readily actionable and applying them to specific needs. On the health side, a bit of my work has recently focused more on heat extremes and some work with Carmen Mendez, as well as air pollution and the other impacts of extreme weather events. And so I'm really excited to hopefully contribute both past, present, and future climate data to everyone here.
Thanks, Ben. And speaking of Carmen, she's next.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Angie and Shasta, for inviting OWIHA to become part of this working group. Laurie, who's an L, and will follow me down the list, and I are excited to be here. I am Carmen Mendez. I am in the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment. We are one of the board's departments and offices that make up the California Environmental Protection Agency, and our office is based in Sacramento. I manage a program that's responsible for developing a periodic report presenting indicators of climate change in California, and the indicators span from what we like to call the beginning of the story, the anthropogenic drivers of climate change, tracking them through changes in climate, impacts on physical systems, notably hydrological systems and oceans, and finally impacts on biology. And Ben is one of our big contributors contributors into the report and is working with us on an extreme heat indicator and has been. We also, and I'm going to let Laurie address the tribal aspect of the work that we do in the indicator project. We also have a number of indicators that are focused on impacts of climate change on human health, and we're presently collaborating with folks at the California Department of Public Health to develop additional indicators, such as indicators tracking exposures to wildfire smoke and a potential indicator for valley fever. Vector-borne diseases and heat-related illness and mortality indicators have been in prior reports, and we will continue to do that. In addition to our climate change indicator work, OWIHA is also houses an epidemiological group that looks at or conducts studies on the health outcomes associated with exposures to elevated temperatures, not necessarily extreme heat, but just warming temperatures in California. And we also have a program that developed the tool Cahill Virus Screen, which is used as a way of ranking impacts across census tracts in California. It's not a climate change tool, but it has socioeconomic indicators as well as a bunch of environmental indicators. And I'll stop at that. Thank you.
Thanks, Carmen.
Walker Whelan too. So you guys are a powerhouse over there.
Right.
Yeah, I think he'll join us at another day.
Okay, great.
All right, so moving down the list to Chris OMalley.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Chris OMalley. I'm a senior epidemiologist for the County of San Diego's Community Health Statistics Unit. Our unit falls under the Health and Human Services Agency, Public Health Services, and we provide health statistics that describe health behaviors, diseases, and injuries for specific populations, as well as health trends and comparisons to national targets.
Thanks, Chris. Claudia Brown.
Hi, I'm Claudia Brown. I'm a health scientist with the CDC's Climate and Health Program, and they're the health science team over there. Got looped in through Paul Schramm, and so a little bit new to this group, but not new to the climate and health world on the CDC side. I've been there for about 9 years. Over there, I also work with the Environmental Public Health Tracking Program as the Climate Change Content Workgroup co-chair. So we are always working with different stakeholders and grantees on ways to update our climate and health indicators that are on the Environmental Public Health Tracking Portal, which is kind of like a data, a large database that aggregates data from EPA, NOAA, other federal agencies, and has a mapping application on there. So happy to talk more about that. And then also we, of course, support the National Indian Health Board and its initiative with the Climate Ready Tribes.
Thanks, Claudia. We're glad you are here. And now Torrett English.
Hi, this is Torrett. Can you see me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. It's not showing up on my screen, but glad to be here with everyone. Such an amazing group of people. And I'm also affiliated with the CDC BRACE program as a grantee in the California Department of Public Health and the CalBRACE project that's part of the Climate Change and Health Equities section in the Office of Health Equity. And we have been working alongside the Pella Band for the last couple of years in developing curriculum or reviewing and giving input, and also data review and input. We have created the California Climate Change and Health Vulnerability Indicators, which is a suite of indicators for determining the threat and the vulnerability of local populations, as well as adaptive capacity through mapping and data work. And we're excited now to be working with the California Governor's Office of Planning and Research on a vulnerability vulnerable populations platform that will probably incorporate some of the indicators we've developed, and is being developed to make an accessible platform to communities and people who aren't epidemiologists or urban planners, or just folks who aren't really trained formally in how to use data and maps. So we're excited to be a part of that and to, bring that information to the general public to do local planning and resilience work. And one of the things I'm really interested in also is how to get tribes on the maps. Most of our state maps don't locate where tribes are. And I think that would be really helpful, both in terms of making Indigenous people of California visible to the rest of the population, but also in assisting tribes in being able to more easily use these tools that are being developed by the state.
Thanks,
So
Torrett.
Yeah.
And now, Doug, I'm sorry if I pronounce your last name wrong, Cluck.
We all have our burdens we got to live with. So yeah, no, it's if you really want to be German about it, you can say Kluck. I know no one can tell the difference between Kluck and Cluck. And when I call on the phone, it's Clark. Everybody thinks it's Clark. Well, anyway, Cluck is fine. So those of you who know me are probably laughing pretty hard, but I work for NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. I'm a regional climate services director for the north central part of the US, basically Rockies to the Great Lakes. I don't have a health background, so I won't be able to get into the nitty gritty on that. I do work for a part of NOAA called the National Centers for Environmental Information. And as you can guess, or you might know, it's the storehouse for climate data and all kinds, satellite, radar, surface information, ocean information. So everything is kind of collected and put in this giant archive. Now, yeah, so I'll say that. My job, however, is I represent them and I represent NOAA to some degree. I also do a lot of, I have a region, if you will, to take care of. So climate service is my middle name. And a lot of that means talking about real-time climate issues that people are concerned about. And we try to inform across timescales and geographies. So it means local to regional, maybe even national sometimes. I know that doesn't give you a lot of specificity, but well, the other thing I was going to mention is that I'm involved with the National Climate Assessment, which the 5th version of that is going to be, well, it's beginning the process now. I'm not going to say I am the representative for this team by any means, but I am a coordinating lead author for the Northern Plains chapter. And there will be a tribal chapter. There will be a health chapter. So those are all great things to keep in mind as we move forward. And I don't know, some of you actually may be authors someday in that. That would be great. And you could bring some of the knowledge you all have to that national perspective. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. And now we have Isabelle.
Hi. So my last name is Kirkos. So Doug, I feel your pain because I have been, people not only spell my name wrong, and I have a collection of spellings, misspellings of my name, but I'm also occasionally Kirkus and Crocus, which, is fun. And occasionally I'm not Isabelle, I'm Elizabeth, and memorably I was Rebecca for 1.5 years. So anyway, I work for Chris with the Community Health Statistics Unit for the county. I'm a spatial epidemiologist. I work on many, many different areas of public health, lots of different type diseases, injuries, as a population health biologist. I also do a lot of GIS, and a lot of the work is sort of free range, where it might be someone who doesn't do GIS, and so I help them with their data, and that's That's what I do. I'm very into the nerding side and the data side. And I've also worked with Shasta for a while on projects and also on climate change.
Yeah, Isabel's great. She's definitely a data nerd, and I have a hard time with some of that stuff, so she's great to have on board. All right, now we're into the J's. Jessica Cahill.
Oh, Shasta, I love it when you say my name correctly. Thank you so much. I was going to make a joke about how I'm usually Jessica Cahill, but not today. Thank you. I'm Jessica Cahill. I am with a company called Xavia, but I'll talk about that in just a second. I'm on Lenape land, also known as Wallingford, Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia. Xavia is a small geospatial software engineering firm. We build fancy maps, basically. We are generally not data providers, but we are certainly data visualizers, and we create maps that are, well, we hope are accessible and easy to use for people who are not particularly, data geeks or anything like that. But I've been so lucky to work with Angie and Shasta for a couple years now, and I'm actually on a working group with Nikki. So there are a couple of ways that my work overlaps here. Xavia in general does a lot of environmental work. We're a for-profit, but we're a B Corp. So we only take on projects that have civic, social, or environmental good. And I am on a crusade to make at least 80% of our portfolio in the environmental good space. Specifically, I was brought on board to work on climate change initiatives. And Angie and Shasta know this, but we have built a climate change vulnerability assessment and adaptation decision support tool for small to mid-sized communities. It's called Temperate. And we actually worked together on a project to incorporate data and content that was specific to tribal, rural, and hard to reach communities, which was really, really effective. I'm working with Nikki on another working group around creating a shared database of resilient strategies. Hopefully that will be nationally acceptable or nationally accessible very soon, within the year, I'd say, hopefully, Nikki. But in general, we do a lot of work with NOAA. One of the pieces of the Temperate workflow is actually incorporated into the Climate Explorer, which we've been really excited about. In general, we want to get climate data out there. We want to get it into a format that is usable, and we have a real bias towards action. So we try to build tools and resources that really help people interpret the data that they're looking at and decide what to do about it. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. And now Kelly Milligan.
Sorry guys, I had to transition the baby to lunch. So I will make this short and sweet because she will probably interject. My name is Kelly Milligan. I am located up on Maidu, Miwok, and Nisenan territory. So it's up here in Sacramento, California. And I work for the California Tribal Epidemiology Center. So we are one of 12 TECs, as we call them, tribal epicenters, located around the country. And we serve the federally recognized tribes in California specifically, so all 109 tribes. And we work on all things public health. So we are definitely the health side, just kind of getting into this more specific environmental health realm. So we do provide, collect, analyze, and interpret health data for tribes here in California, and that includes both primary and secondary data. So we have a team of epidemiologists and a team of evaluators and public health professionals that support this work.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you, baby. Laura August.
Hi, everyone. Thanks. I have an easy last name, which is why I took my husband's name. Yeah, thank you all for having me. So Carmen Mendez from OEHA Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment did a nice job introducing our office as part of Cali, PA. So I don't need to go into too much detail. And she talked a little bit about the project that I work on, which is Cal Virus Screen. So to step back, yeah, I'm a research scientist with OEHA, have environmental health and GIS background. And I think, as you might know, Cal Virus Screen has a cumulative impacts or an environmental justice mapping tool where we combine info on data on pollution, environmental conditions, health, and socioeconomics to rank communities across the state in terms of their cumulative pollution burdens. In terms of intersection with climate, the tool itself doesn't have indicators of climate, but it's something we're thinking about sort of as it could be a supplemental data layers to the tool to look at the intersection with climate vulnerability and climate justice. And the tool itself is used in funding of a lot of the state's greenhouse gas reduction funds. A lot of funding in the tool, places identified in the tool, goes to communities that score high there. So some things also we're thinking about is sort of how do we address data gaps related to tribal communities. We are definitely aware that a lot of some of the environmental and health data and socioeconomic data, there are gaps for tribal communities across the state. So, just thinking about how to address some of those as well. And then another thing our group is working on, kind of sort of piloting and thinking about how with our Cal EnviroScreen, our mapping tool intersection with climate indicators, we're developing an indicator of wildfire vulnerability, where we're combining information on wildfire risk and adaptive capacity in communities. And sort of when we initially look at it, we see that California tribal lands are, disproportionately located in those places with high wildfire vulnerability. And so we're hoping to put that tool out soon, as it may be relevant, and kind of thinking as how our program can have supplemental data layers in the climate space as well. So thanks again, for having me.
Thanks, Laurie, from Laura to Laurie.
I know we're confusing, sorry.
Hey, I'll apologize for the lack of a webcam today. I'm coming to you today from beautiful Kanaka-Awiwi territory in Kauai, Hawaii. And I have the best job at OWIHA. I get to work with tribal nations documenting impacts of climate change on their tribes. And I'm also a enthusiastic alumni of the tribal climate health training, which I have loved and used in my work almost daily. The other thing OWIHA does that may be of use at some point is the human right to water work that we do. And also the work on harmful algal blooms, the cyanobacteria. And I'm really thrilled to be here. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Laurie. And now we have Mead Crosby.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mead Crosby. I'm a senior scientist with the Climate Impacts Group at the University of Washington, and also the Deputy University Director of the Northwest Climate Adaptation Science Center. So let's see, both of those groups, the Climate Impacts Group and the CASC, are focused on supporting decision makers in incorporating climate change into what they do and preparing for climate change. And the CASC is particularly focused on natural resources. And I'm a biologist, a conservation biologist, and so I mostly work with land and wildlife managers too. My relevance to this work, sorry, I was running from helping my daughter with something really quickly. It's a little out of breath. So my relevance to this work is mostly in previous work I've done with many individual tribes in the Northwest, as well as tribal organizations, to help provide climate data and adaptation support in developing climate change vulnerability assessments and adaptation plans. And I also led the collaborative development of the Tribal Climate Tool, which serves tribes in the Northwest and Great Basin in providing sort of tailored downscale climate information to tribes for areas of concern to them. And there's sort of always the ongoing conversation of whether and how we might expand that tool nationally. So my work isn't specifically focused on health, but many of the kinds of data that we address in our work are relevant to health, from things like extreme heat days and fire risk to impacts on first foods and cultural resources. Thanks.
Thank you, Mead. And now the moment I've been waiting for, Nicole Cooley.
Oh my gosh, Shasta, that's a great introduction. Well, since we are talking about tribal tribal stuff. I'm going to introduce myself this way. I come up as Nicolette sometimes, but I prefer Nikki. So siya kanya ani nishla look at the nabashichin is the sana edashanale headline edashiche. I'm of the Towering House clan. I'm born for the Reed people clan, my father's clan. Paternal grandparents are from the Mini Goats. Maternal grandparents are from the water that flows together. I am Diné from what is now known as Arizona, Shanto and Blue Gap, Arizona. But I reside in Flagstaff, Arizona. And it's the lands of the original rightful lands of the Navajo, Hopi, Havasupai, Wallapai, Paiute, and many other tribes. And I work as a co-manager along with Karen Cazzetto of the Institute for Tribal Environmental Professionals, ITEP's Tribes and Climate Change Program. And she's based out of Boulder, Colorado, while I'm in Flagstaff. And I've been at this job since 2015, and the Tribes and Climate Change Program basically responds to whatever tribes need in order to create adaptation plans. And now we've delved into tribal hazard mitigation planning. We do workshops, conference sessions. We do a ton of outreach across the country with different tribes. And we work with a lot of partners. Many of you that I have worked with or used your organization's tools, data are on here. So, and someone said to me, Nikki is everywhere, but it's not true. It's just I really like doing my work, working with tribes and the partners, and my end goal is really working with tribes to make sure that they get the best information at the end of the day to create their plans to address climate change. So basically everything I do and have done since I grew up on the res was literally to make sure our people are taken care of, but also our non-human relatives are taken care of. And that is all health and culture. There's no separation between both of them. So you could say that my entire life addresses tribal resilience data. I gather data pretty much every day through my outreach, through my conversations, through our work and whatnot. So I am so happy to be here. I only did it because Shasta said I had to. So no, not really. Basically, I'm really interested in this stuff. So I'm happy to be here. So yeah.
Thank you, Nikki. And you know, it goes both ways. Anything you tell me to do, I'm doing it. And next we have Paula Eskara.
Hi, everyone. My name is Paula. I'm here representing the Climate Science Alliance. I'm in place of our director, Amber Paris, who couldn't come to today's meeting, but she asked me to listen in and take notes and fill her in later because she's very interested in keeping us as part of this work group. So for those of you who don't know, the Climate Science Alliance's mission is to safeguard human and natural communities in the face of a changing climate. And as part of that, we help lead a tribal working group here in Southern California, based out of San Diego, California. And part of that, sorry, apologies, is conversations that come out of this tribal work group have a lot to do with data privacy and prioritizing data sovereignty. And because we work in with a lot of different groups, including a lot of academic institutions, which have their own sort of views on data ownership, it's something that we have to navigate a lot, and we're still learning. And so currently we have a project with San Diego State, University of California, Riverside, and funded through the Strategic Growth Council, looking at climate change impacts to culturally significant plants. And this is led by the Tribal Working Group. And a big part of this project is data sovereignty, which is a challenge, as I've spoken about, specifically, how do we make this data and everything that comes from this project accessible to all the tribes that participate, but also keep it private and not necessarily publicly accessible, because some of the geographic information might be sensitive and respective to the tribe. So I'm hoping to learn a lot from this group and also to share anything we learn along the way. Thank you.
Thanks, Paula. And Tom Gates at the very end. And I think you're also one of the phone numbers, right, Tom, the 916?
Yes, that's my phone number, and I didn't link it up. Sorry. I tried to, but I screwed up the numbers. So yeah, Thomas Gates, but you can call me Tom. My parents called me Thomas and insisted that I always say Thomas and sign my name as Thomas, but no one else pays attention to that. So there's one confusion with names. Let's see here. I am located right now. I work for the California Energy Commission. I am the tribal liaison, and I also am the supervisor of the Cultural Resources Unit in the siting division at the Energy Commission. I'm an anthropologist, trained as an anthropologist, but actually have done a lot of archaeology as well. I would say the good kind of archaeology, the archaeology that protects things, not the archaeology that digs things up. I'll return to that. I currently live, I don't live in Sacramento anymore. I currently live up in northern Mendocino County. For some of you that pay attention, it's where everyone grows the marijuana. That's where I live. I'm really close to a place called Round Valley Indian Reservation, the Covelo area. So I'm right next door to them. This is technically Yuki territory, but a lot of the tribal people that live next door to me were forced marched here from other parts of California, and a lot of them have not left, but the Yuki are still here as well. So very extreme mountain area, dirt roads, limited electricity, that type of thing. Shasta kind of already outed me. I spent a former life, 18 years, working for the Yurok tribe as their historic preservation officer and their self-governance officer. Also was a professor at Humboldt State University a long time ago. Also spent 10 years doing fishery restoration for the Forest Service, watershed restoration, that kind of stuff. Also spent a time cutting down trees for a timber company. And probably, I might as well tell you, I washed cars at a car wash once and grew up on a farm. So there you go. Now you know who I am. I think in terms of what the Energy Commission and my office, the tribal program, could bring to this group, couple things. You know, I don't personally have my fingertips on a lot of science data in the ways that a lot of you are talking about data. But what I can bring to the group is we have done a number of events, tribal events, in the areas of climate change and energy development. And for me, those are connected. One of our problems is because of our energy sources, we now have this thing called climate change. And I think one of many ways to deal with it is to also retool our energy sector. So there is that link between energy and climate change. But we've done a lot of events with tribes to understand their energy needs in the renewable energy sectors for California. And we've also, and so if you want to know the results of those events, you can go to our webpage at the Energy Commission, the tribal program webpage. You can click on our events. There's a report. That might be kind of boring, but what those reports do is show you the trends that the Energy Commission wishes to fund for tribes. And we take those reports and put those out to the rest of the state agencies for them to consider as well. I would also say that we are working on a large project with my partners at the Strategic Growth Council, another state agency, to do a tribal gap analysis. Shasta is involved in that, so is Angie. Angie's actually represents the consulting firm that's doing that gap analysis. We're trying to understand what are tribal needs in the renewable energy and climate adaptation sectors for tribes in California. So we should have those results out next winter. Should be a really good report. We're getting a lot of good data from tribes. And the last thing I'll say is what's emerging in California. You know, we're working on the state's 5th climate change assessment. That's finally been mandated by the legislature. In the past, it's been a voluntary effort, sort of bootstrapped together with various budgets. There's a couple agencies that do this. This should not be confused with what Carmen and Laura and Laurie are working on at OWIHA with the Climate Change Indicators Report, which is linked to the climate change assessment, but those are two different things. The climate change assessment finally has been recognized by our legislature as something important and is now a mandated required document to be produced. The Energy Commission, the Strategic Growth Council, the Office of Planning and Research, the California Natural Resources Agencies are all the lead agencies on that. And we are hoping budget will come out in a couple weeks, state budget for next year. We are hoping that in that budget, there is a tribal climate change assessment grant program that, if that is budgeted, my office would implement. And it would be providing tribes with funds to contribute to the state's 5th climate change assessment. So we're all on pins and needles waiting for that budget to come out and see if our legislature will, well, to be frank, do the right thing and fund that tribal effort, as well as the rest of the climate change assessment. If we don't get funding, we're still mandated and required to do the report, and we're still going to do a tribal section, but I don't know how good it will be without adequate funding, but we'll see how that goes. So I think that's enough for now. And thanks for the opportunity, Shasta and Angie.
Thanks, Tom. And then, you know, of course, this always happens, right? We have an hour to meet. We just took 50 minutes to do introductions, but everybody here is really important, and it's really great to hear what everybody's working on. Just one last thing. We do have a phone number, and I'm not sure if it's somebody who already introduced themselves, but it's 843-2009 something.
Hi, this is Leah Fisher with the California Strategic Growth Council. I'll just say hello really. I'm so sorry I'm on the phone. I'm actually headed on vacation, but there's too many of my favorite people on this call to have missed it. So Tom shared a lot of what we're working on, as well as funding research that, you know, partners with and uplifts tribes into lead positions. So I'm just here to listen, but looking forward to engaging. Thanks.
Thanks, Leah, for calling us on the way to vacation, and Laurie for calling in from vacation in Hawaii. And so Angie, we've got 9 minutes.
Yeah, it's okay. In the spirit of adaptation, we're going to adapt the plan. But I do want to say thank you for all of that. We intentionally tried to get a cross section of local, state, regional, federal agencies, nonprofits, universities, private sector, because everybody has a role in solving this problem. We don't care where the solution comes from. We think everybody has probably a piece. And so we hope that you'll continue to participate, because what I actually want to do after listening to all that is create a directory of all of you and what you are offering and what you do, so that each of us can kind of keep that in mind, because that was a lot of information. And maybe you'll help me edit that. So I already told, I'm going to give you just a teaser now of what we have done in our project, and then I'm going to turn it over to what it means to participate in this group. And then we'll save the rest of this for our next meeting, where I want to dive into a little deeper on what we have learned from all of our artwork. And so I told you about the Tribal Climate Health Project, how we've dove into data development because there was a need, because we were doing the research, and because we were finding all the facts that a tribe would possibly need to do their adaptation planning process. And in doing that, we just started organizing it. And that led us to develop a tool we're calling the EASY tool, which is an exposure, impacts, and strategies inventory, which I don't have time to demo for you right now, but I will. And it's really an Excel-based tool, but it's creating a customizable, filterable, organized set of indicators that go alongside data sources. And so I've pulled from so many of you and the tools and data that you already have to put it into this aggregated inventory of information, so that tribes don't have to start from scratch. What is an exposure? Well, we've organized it by the 5 exposures you see up top here: temperature extremes, wildfire, storms and flooding, drought, melting ice, and sea level rise. And we're talking about the cascading effects in terms of how that creates secondary exposures and impacts to natural environment, built environment, health, and social environment. And so our tool has this long inventory of indicators and data sources for exposures, impacts, population sensitivity, adaptive capacity, and even tries to incorporate valued community assets and weaves all of that both from external information that might be publicly accessible in varying degrees of effort versus what they might look for internally with their own traditional knowledges and local observations, and trying to braid all that together in a worksheet form that they can actually use to do their assessments. And it showcases a lot of you. So I'm gonna kind of skip past a lot of this just to tell you a little bit about the project that allowed us to do this work. Funded by the BIA, the first phase was called the Scalable San Diego Intertribal Resilience Data Project. And it basically meant we got to work with 6 tribes in San Diego to test our tool and compile all the resilience data we could for them, give it to them, and go back and forth with them about, is this meaningful? What's not meaningful? What's not there? What priorities do you have for the gaps that are there in data? And it isn't just health, but we did want to address health. And we learned a lot from that process. We came up with the gaps list. And then we worked specifically with the California Tribal Epidemiology Center to try to fill gaps. And I'll also mention that Jessica's group, Azavia, and their temperate tool, we gave subscriptions to that, to the tribes that participated. And so, but we used all the data we could possibly find from known sources to compile it so that the tribes didn't have to do that themselves. And then looking at that to see, is that the right data? Phase 2 is to take that same model, do it in Southern California, but we tacked on this piece, which is, let's get all the best minds in the country together to see what solutions are already there and how we can build upon them. So this is just a little snapshot of the kind of data that we got from the California Tribal Epidemiology Center, which we'll go into detail a little bit more later, but it was epidemiological data, it was health-related data presented in a really beautiful way. About healthy mind, body, and community, and indicators that maybe we hadn't come across, and in parameters that we were not used to receiving things in some ways downscaled enough at the county level, maybe not as down as we'd like to, but they have confidentiality limitations like everybody else. But yeah, it was specific to the AI and American Indian and American Native population. So that was useful and different. And so we really thank CTEC for that work. We went back and forth on the kinds of indicators they had access to, the data sources, and they have special authority to get data and evaluate it, interpret it, and provide it in the way we needed. Along with that, we ended up building out a step-by-step guide to accessing tribal climate and health resilience data, which we've developed. We've placed on our website already. You can access that. And it walks you through how to use the easy tool and how to do a CTEC data request. So I'm not going to go over our learnings other than to say we know a lot now from years and years of doing this about data gaps, about outstanding data needs, more specifically. So those are general, more specific. And I'd like to talk to this group about what we've learned and hear what you know. And then just some deep thoughts about the anatomy of data, meaning what do we want from data? Where do we want data? What point do we want data to get to make it as user-friendly as possible for tribes? And it's probably not, raw data is not there. Calculated data is nice. Community-ready data, meaning that it's visualized and in a map or chart, is better. And even better than that is a customized report that they can adapt for themselves. So we'll save that discussion for the next time, but I want to talk to you a little bit about participating in this group. We haven't made decisions yet about whether this is quarterly or monthly, if we want to stick to an hour and a half. What I do want to do is take time at the coming meetings to showcase everybody's work. So do a short presentation from everybody to tell us a little bit more, not just about their work, but what insights and ideas that is generating for them about how we can better support tribal resilience data gaps. And so I want to stop there and just kind of ask for folks to give me any input in this last couple of minutes on the meeting structure that you see here. And if you have any thoughts on the goals as they're presented here. And I think what I will also do after this meeting is just send out an email and ask you for any responses afterwards.
So my brief suggestion, just given the amount of time we did for introductions today, was that we I would like to have another meeting with this group within the next month so that we can spend some more time talking about this stuff. And then at that point, maybe when we're a little bit more, focused on what we want to do, then we can decide whether we want to do a monthly or a quarterly meeting kind of structure. I don't feel like we've had enough time yet. So I think that would be a good thing to send out to people, is just to say, would you be willing to do another meeting in a month? And of course, now that you've heard a little bit more about what we're doing, do you want to continue to participate? And that might just be something we can continue to discuss over email. But yeah, anybody want to speak up and say, Shasta, you're out of your mind, or something related?
I'm up for that.
I agree, Shasta. I agree. Start monthly and maybe 1.5 hours. And then as we get into it, we can go to quarterly or an hour or whatever.
Okay. And I see a thumbs up from Althea. So thank you, Althea, for the thumbs up. Another one from Nikki. And now Dorette. Okay. Whoa, 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 whoa. There's like thumbs coming out everywhere. I feel like I'm getting poked in the eye now. You guys are great, because I know it's become a cliche now to say we want to be respectful of your time, but of course we do want to be respectful of your time. So it is exactly 12 o'clock. It sounds like we got our marching orders. We'll do another meeting in a month and spend some more time with open discussion.
And our goals. We'll talk through goals too.
Yeah. And just one real briefly, Laurie had something in the chat. She says, one pie in the sky suggestion or wish is to make all of this scalable and accessible to tribes that are dealing with lack of resources, changing staff, etc. They're also being impacted and may have great need. And that's exactly why we're doing this, to try to make things more accessible, especially to tribes with fewer resources. So, all right, you guys are great. Thank you so much for being here and your wonderful introductions. I can't wait to talk to you all again in a month or so.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.